Hi, everyone. Right, so I'm going to start this off nice and easy. When I was younger, picturing myself doing a TEDx talk, which, to be completely transparent, was quite often, I always thought I would have a witty line to kick this off with. Yet, here I stand in front of you today with what I think is a story that deserves better than a catchy punchline. My name is Bianca Caravtov. I was born in Romania at 6 months instead of 9 and weighed 850 grams. While that's a fun fact about me, that's a story for another time. My mum and I emigrated to the UK when I was 11. I didn't speak any English, and to say that I was thrown in the deep end would be a massive understatement. I still very vividly remember her sitting me down and telling me that for us to stay here, we'd both have to work very hard. But as long as I did that, this is one of the very few places in the world where I can make my dreams come true. And while she was mostly right, what the world neglects to mention is that often this sentence ends with a but. You can make your dreams come true, but. And it's that sentence that has followed me from secondary school into university and now inevitably into the working world. And this is that story, my story of how I went from an immigrant child that didn't speak any English and, to be completely honest, was quite ashamed of saying where she came from, to what I can only describe now as an almost fully functioning adult that has a story to tell. And this is my mum and I. This is not when I was 11, this was taken before, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of a visual of what we looked like back then. I was a small kid with big aspirations and something to prove to the world. As you can see, I'm still small and I have big dreams, so not much has changed there. Being born prematurely has always made me feel like there's a purpose why I'm here, and there's a reason for me to share my story. And while I'm still trying to figure out what that is, today I feel closer than ever to being where I need to be. School was hard. I was bullied for my accent and where I came from. And while I was prepared for the children to be mean, given their age and their development at that point, what I wasn't prepared for were the adults in a position of power being meaner. Not because of where I came from or my accent, but their own unique reasons at the time. And those have sat with me for my entire life. For the next bit to make sense, I need to give you a bit of context on what my thinking was at the time and what my aspirations were when I was younger. I really wanted to study at Cambridge University. It was just what felt right for me at that point and where I thought I would best develop. And my extracurriculars were arranged around that, my education was arranged around that, everything that I did was tailored so that eventually I'd make it into Cambridge. And everyone knew about this. My family knew about this, my friends knew about this, most importantly, my teachers knew about this. That being said, I was once told in no uncertain terms by a teacher that the reason why I wasn't being predicted the grades that I needed to apply to Cambridge University was because I needed to learn that sometimes dreams don't come true. And that's a difficult thing to say to a child with big aspirations. Lucky for me, and for everyone else with dreams, she was very wrong. While I may not have gotten into Cambridge, I did get an A-star in TOAs, and I think I made it into a perhaps even better path for me. I just couldn't see it at the time. But why is this important for you to know, other than for the sheer entertainment of knowing that a teacher was wrong? While there's always going to be people that stand in the way of your achievements, there are usually also a handful of supportive people that will balance out those negative thoughts and influences. For me, at that point in my life, it was the Sutton Trust that stepped in to remind me that I could achieve whatever I put my mind to. And behind me now, you'll see some statistics that I did ask for permission from the Trust to show you today. They very clearly show how easy it is for bright, brilliant young minds to be left behind due to a lack of support in education. And while I let you take in those figures, I'm going to put it into the context of today's theme. I feel like it's very easy to forget just how wide that gap is, and how past situations like the pandemic and like the world events happening at the moment continue to widen that. And there's a very significant lack of acknowledgement that this gap exists and it needs to be addressed. Therefore, it's, in my opinion, the responsibility of people like us, people that have been through hardships and hurdles along the way, that have made it onto their next adventure, or have managed to get a seat at that table that we were once looking at from afar, in conjunction with organizations such as the Sutton Trust, to work together to bridge that gap, and hopefully do that through talking about your experiences, through actively supporting the younger generation in answering and asking questions, or through doing whatever you think is necessary to support the next generation of leaders. And this is why I'm here today, to talk about this. I really wish I could say that university was an environment with more supportive adults in a position of power. But sadly, as you can probably tell from my tone and how I started this story, this is not where this story is going. I have an example that is somewhat comical at this point because it didn't affect me much, but looking back at it, it's quite significant. A lecturer once gave me a feedback on an essay that said, it's not that what you did was wrong, I just didn't like it. And looking back at it now, I'm still not entirely sure what you do with that feedback, but I'm going to leave that there. The kind of bigger influential factor that happened while I was at university was that very early in my degree, I started debating whether law was the right career path for me. And for those of you studying law, you'll know that this happens quite early into your career. So after the first year, I started wondering if it was the right path for me. And then when I got into the third year, I knew that it was definitely time to make a change. And I had a lot of questions swirling around my head, including, should I apply to Microsoft? Should I go down the tech route? Should I stick it out and try and see if maybe I've jumped the gun a bit too soon? And when those questions started arising, I thought the best person to reach out to would be a career advisor. So I set up an appointment, I had a conversation with her, and the advice that I was given was that I should probably stick to what I knew, which was law, and that only a very small percentage of people without a technical background make it into the likes of Microsoft or into similar technical places. And I'm going to leave you with that for a second while I tell you this. I didn't have a technical background. She was correct with that. I didn't have anyone that could introduce me into the world of tech. She was also correct with that. All I had was a lot of enthusiasm, a little bit of common sense, and a law degree that I was very proud of. And with that in my hand, not only did I get an unconditional offer from Microsoft, 3 years on, I still work there, and it's going quite well. So while she was technically correct in her assumption, it could have stopped me from going after a dream just because I followed someone else's opinion. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. People will always have opinions, and this is really important to remember. While there are always going to be people that try and stand in the way of you achieving your dreams, there's usually equally as many people that will support you when others push you down. I'm incredibly lucky that my mother is and has always been a tremendous support system for me. But that aside, when I was at Warwick and I decided I wanted to go on a year abroad, it was the head of law school at the time that after I tried to speak to the university and say, hey, I'd like to go on a year abroad, can we just add it on? And they said, categorically not. It has never been done before. And I'd like you to remember that. No, because it has never been done before. It was her that sat down with me and said, actually, let's talk about it, because I've promised myself that every person that wants to go on a year abroad will be able to do so. And it was because of her that Warwick University created a separate degree for me, which you can see up on the board at the top, that I graduated from separately in order to be able to go on a year abroad. Had she not taken the time to speak to me, to understand my passion and why I wanted to do this, my life wouldn't be the same today. And for that, I will forever be grateful to her. I made it into Hong Kong. I got my visa 2 days before I was due to fly out. I landed in a typhoon, and I stayed in a college that had Monday dinners where you wore Harry Potter gowns and you went downstairs and sang in Latin. So to say I made the most of that experience would be an understatement. While there, I won an award for a research paper about China's investment in artificial intelligence. I traveled to 13 countries, and this still remains my way of escaping from adult problems. I pack my bags, I go traveling, it's great. I discovered my passion for tech, which inevitably has helped me get into the position that I'm in today and where I work. And I've made memories and friends that will last me a lifetime. And that theme of knocking on doors and not taking no for an answer has stuck with me from my early and career years too. The year in Hong Kong changed my life. I learned a lot of lessons, but the biggest lesson, which you can probably tell from what I've said before, is that you should always ask the question, even if you're afraid that the answer might be no. And in fact, you should ask the question a few times, because you never know. It might either take you in the direction of a new adventure, or even if the answer remains no, it might make you realize what you really want to do in life. And both are tremendous things to learn about yourself. Don't be afraid to also pitch your value to the people that you've asked the question to. Because at the end of the day, A, you need to change your mind somehow, and B, if you're not your own cheerleader, who else is going to be? No one's going to do a better job than you to showcase someone how brilliant you are and why you should be in that room or why you should take that opportunity. So don't be afraid of asking questions. Try not to take no for an answer. And pitch your value and be confident in that. And this theme of not taking no for an answer has stuck with me through my early and career years too. Now, I have good news and bad news about this next bit. Your degree is brilliant. That being said, your degree is great, but it doesn't prepare you for the working world. The reality is that the teacher that didn't have faith in me was not a reflection of my secondary school. The career advisor that told me to stick to what I knew was not a reflection of the university that I went to. Just like the manager that told me that I shouldn't take a career-altering opportunity was not a reflection of my workplace. That being said, those people could have changed the trajectory of my life and could have stopped me from becoming the best version of myself had I not had the right support system in place to help counteract that. And it is partially the responsibility of people like me that have been through that to openly talk about it in order to raise awareness that we need to be conscious about what we tell other people, because you can actively influence someone's life. And to slightly lighten the mood, because this has all been very serious, that little human on top of the mountain that you can see there is me, overlooking Hong Kong. And yes, when I said that I took every opportunity in Hong Kong, I meant every opportunity, including that. So in my first year at Microsoft, I was given the opportunity to move on to an incredible project. And it was two determined women and their manager, and I'm going to name names here, and they know this is coming, Heather, Sam, and their manager, Chris, that saw potential in me and gave me the opportunity to try something new, to add value to a team, and to work hard and move my career in a different direction. And before I continue with this story, I want you to cast your minds back to what I asked you to remember a little bit earlier of, no, you can't do this because it has never been done before. And if you ever come across this sentence from anyone, because I've now heard it 2 times in my life, and I assume some other people might hear it too, I want you to ask yourself and the person that has put this in front of you 2 questions. Why has it never been done before? And why can't I be the first person to do it? And the answer might be very obvious. It's never been done because it shouldn't be done, and that's fine. But usually the answer is, it's never been done yet. So be that trailblazer. Be the person that says, I want to do this. And don't be afraid, again, to ask questions, even if the answer might be no. Now, to go back to my earlier point about my career development and people helping me, it was Heather and her colleagues that gave me a voice in a crowded room and gave me the opportunity to stand up and say, I have something of value to add to this conversation, and not be afraid about the consequences of disturbing the status quo or people not trusting that I have something valuable to add. And for that, I'll forever be grateful, but also I hope that someday I will be able to be someone else's Heather that challenges a company and says, let's try and change things here, and brings a bright mind that has something to say at the front and lets them develop their talents. So to go back to my earlier point, which I've now said twice, but I think third time's a charm, so I'm going to say it again. Difficult people are always going to walk through your life. It's just the nature of where we are. But the reality is, as long as you're determined, as long as you're hardworking, your age, your gender, your nationality, your lack of technical experience, everything like that should never matter. And it's now partially the responsibility of the people that have made it into organizations such as Microsoft to make sure that that door remains open for kids with bright minds that want to make a difference in the world. And by default, it's my responsibility as someone that has made it to a seat at the table, not the big table, not big seat, but a seat at a table nonetheless, to make sure that we foster these conversations and keep the doors open for children that may not have the right support system within education or at home, and become a mentor for them, and also encourage people that have been through similar experiences to do the same. I am going to make a slight caveat here and add that while institutional issues are always going to be there, actively discussing them and becoming someone that isn't afraid to stand up and say, I have a story to tell that might change your perception, will help balance that out. Because in spite of what my secondary school teacher said, and her perception of the world, I can tell you standing here today, without a shadow of a doubt, that dreams do come true. Thank you.